you ever heard an album that feels like it understands you a little too well? Not in a dramatic way, in a quiet human way, like it's sitting beside you, saying, "Yeah, that feeling, I know it." That's what Songs from the Big Chair by Tears for Fears still does. It's polished, it's huge, it's radio friendly, and yet it carries something vulnerable underneath the shine. The incredible thing is that it managed to do both at once, sound like an arena and still feel like a private conversation. This podcast episode is about how that happened, how Tears for Fears built this record, what was happening around 1985 that shaped its mood, what studio choices made it sound so wide and clear, and why the songs still feel emotionally alive decades later. To really feel this record, it helps to step back into 1985 for a moment. A lot of people were still living in a world where music was physical. You bought the vinyl or the cassette, you stared at the cover art, you replayed the same song until the tape started to sound slightly worn. Walkmans were everywhere. Hi-fi systems mattered. If someone had a nice stereo at home, that living room could become the neighborhood's listening room for a night. Music TV was also shaping taste. If you had access to channels like MTV and its European equivalents, you didn't just hear songs, you saw them. A strong video could turn a track into something unforgettable. And sonically, the mid-80s were a moment of transitions. Producers were getting more confident with new tools, drum machines, samplers, MIDI, new synthesizers, while still relying on classic recording craft. Careful mic placement, layered performances, and detailed mixing. That combination is part of why Songs from the Big Chair by Tears for Fears still sound so clean without feeling cold. The album title isn't random branding. It's connected to the TV film Cyville, and the record includes sampled dialogue from that film on the big chair. That matters because Tears for Fears weren't just writing cool 80s pop. Their earlier work was deeply influenced by psychology, especially the idea that buried emotion doesn't disappear, it waits. And Song from the Big Chair takes that emotional core and gives it a scale. It's like they took a very personal theme that is fear, control, release, and built it into something the whole world could sing. Songs from the Big Chair was recorded mainly from 1983 to 1984 at the Wool Hall, Beckington, and produced by Chris Hughes, then released on the 25th of February 1985. The Wool Hall is important in the story because it wasn't just a sterile factory studio. It gave the band space to craft arrangements, layer parts, and experiment. The album became known for sophisticated production values, bigger guitar presence, and a more mainstream, glossy sound compared to their debut. And here's a detail music lovers always find interesting. Early LP copies reportedly had a mixing error where left and right stereo channels were swapped, corrected for most CD editions. That's the kind of physical media era detail that reminds you how albums used to be objects with quirks. Chris Hughes wasn't producing this record like a quick capture the band live session. He was helping build songs layer by layer. You can hear it in the drums, big, punchy, confident, You can hear it in the way the chorus vocals feel stacked and powerful without sounding messy. And you can hear it in the space. Instruments are placed so clearly that even when the arrangement is dense, it still breathes. On Everybody Wants to Rule the World, for example, Hughes is credited with lean drum and MIDI programming, a big clue about how rhythm and timing were being shaped with early digital control. Let's have a brief walk through all the songs of the album. But like a listener in 1985 would, because the track order matters in this case. Let's start with Shout. Shout is the opening statement, and is basically a slow building release valve. It starts like a steady pulse, then grows into a chant that feels communal, like thousands of people shouting the same line because they need to get something out of their chest. The lyrics are simple and repetitive in a way that works. Repetition becomes a tool for emotional pressure, like you are repeating the truth until you finally believe it. And Shout is credited to Chris Hughes on drums and points out how much arrangement detail went into the album overall. And one commentary about the track even described it as being built rhythm first, almost like a manifesto of drums. Then we have the working hour. Then the album pulls you into something more cinematic. The working hour expands the palette with saxophone and piano, proof that Tears for Fears weren't trying to be boxed into just synth pop. There's a grown up feeling here, the kind of song you play late at night when the day is quiet and you are thinking about your life more seriously than you do at noon. The instrumentation credits include grand piano and sax parts that give it a richer, almost film score atmosphere. If you enjoy this kind of deep listening and reflection, join us live every week with the 90s Lover Show on Fridays and with the 80s Lover Show on Saturdays, both live at 7 p.m. Eastern on our YouTube and Kick channels. I first start the YouTube live stream for around 10 minutes just to allow people some time to gather as a kind of waiting room, and then we continue the full show live stream on Kick, where we can play full music, video clips with no restrictions. I, I share the link to Kick for you all to move there. And on Kick is where things really come alive with the 4 show segments, your song request, live voting, your voice messages on air, and even phone calls to share memories, stories, and reflections connected to the music and life. You can participate or simply listen, and if you feel like participating, you can do it on the Kicks live stream chat or by leaving comments on the main post of our public Facebook group, which allows more space to write. Join our public group on Facebook by searching for RetroLovers Radio 80s and 90s Nostalgia. Make sure also to subscribe on YouTube and turn on the notification bell. And keep an eye on all the 6 extra monthly special shows as well. Then we have Everybody Wants to Rule the World. This is the song that became the global handshake. It's instantly welcoming. A calm groove, bright guitar, a melody feels like sunlight through a window. And here's one of the best creation stories in 80s pop. Near the end of finishing the album, Roland Orzabal played 2 simple chords on acoustic guitar that became the foundation. He wasn't even excited about it at first. He needed convincing to develop it. and the song was completely quickly about a week and as the last track recorded for the album. Another source adds extra color. It began with the working title Everybody Wants to Go to War before the lyric concept clicked, and the production used tools like lean drum programming and synth layers, including instruments like the Yamaha DX7 era of digital tone. That's a beautiful reminder. Sometimes a classic starts as something unfinished and slightly awkward. Then one good decision, one lyric that finally fits, turns it into a song that sounds like it always existed. Then we have Mother's Talk. Mother's Talk brings energy back, almost like the album reminding you we can be serious, but we can also move. It has that mid 80s urgency, tight rhythm, sharp vocal phrasing, a feeling that the band is balancing emotion with momentum. It was also among the first songs written for the album, even performed live in late 1983 alongside Head Over Heels and The Working Hour. That detail matters because it shows these weren't studio inventions only. Some of these songs lived on stage first, then grew into their final studio forms. I Believe. I Believe is like the room getting quieter again. There's tenderness here, less punch, more reflection. It's also connected to the band's broader influences. It was influenced by the songwriting of Robert Wyatt and was originally intended for him to record, but the band recorded it themselves. That kind of influence, art, pop, sensitivity, inside the mainstream record, is one reason the album doesn't feel disposable. It has pop success, but it also has taste. Then we have Broken, Head Over Heels, and Broken Live. This sequence is one of the album's signature moves. Broken is short and tense, like a thought you can't stop returning to. Then Head Over Heels opens into something more melodic, romantic, and emotional. And the way Broken Live returns at the end is like the album saying, even when the even when things get beautiful, the older feelings don't completely vanish. They echo. Head Over Heels also has gorgeous vocal layering voices stacked like soft lights around the lead melody. It's one of those songs that can feel nostalgic and new at the same time, depending on where you are in life. Then we have Listen. The closer, Listen, is almost symphonic in feel, less about the radio hook and more about mood. It's the album exhaling. It leaves you with space, like the story doesn't end with a punchline, but with a room you can sit in. If you're enjoying this podcast episode, please take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with the first Tears for Fears song you ever connected to. It helps the channel grow, and I genuinely love reading your memories. Let's see why it changed synth pop without being trapped in synth pop. Here's the big point. Songs from The Big Chair by Tears for Fears didn't win because it had the newest synthesizer sound. It won because it combined three things: pop structure, songs that people can sing, studio ambition, wide mixes, layered arrangement with strong dynamics, and emotional honesty. Lyrics that feel like real inner life, not just slogans. That combination is rare. A lot of albums get one or two of those, but this one got all three. And culturally, it also crossed borders. The album hit number 2 in the UK, but it became a true breakthrough in the US. It reached number 1 on the Billboard 200, and both Everybody Wants to Rule the World and Shout hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. So whether you were in England, Germany, Spain, the US, or somewhere else, this album became part of the air people breathed in 1985. Now let's talk about why you might still play it today. Because life doesn't stop giving you reasons to feel tense, uncertain, overstimulated, or tired. And this album has a quiet strength. It doesn't pretend everything is easy, but it shows what it looks like to turn emotion into something structured and beautiful. Shout is release. Everybody Wants to Rule the World is perspective. Head Over Heels is warmth. And the deeper tracks are like the private pages behind the public smile. Sometimes you don't need a song to fix your life. You just need a song that makes you feel understood for minutes. And that's often enough to help you take the next step. Now, I would like to hear from you in the comments. Where were you when you first heard Songs from the Big Chair by Tears for Fears? Was it in your home stereo, cassette in your car, on the radio, on TV? Which track is the emotional center of the album for you? Is it Shout, or Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Head Over Heels, or a deeper cut like The Working Hour? And one more, if you could pick one song from this album to play for someone who's never heard Tears for Fears, which one would you choose and why? So, do you remember now? This music gave you joy. Now allow this moment to receive that feeling. Alright, everyone, thank you so much for being here and listening to the full episode until the very end. I highly appreciate it. See you all in the next one. I'm Mick, and this is Retro Lovers Radio.